Okay, everybody, here we go again. Liam Hartree here today with some inspiration, some hope, and some positivity that hopefully will help you in your daily life with your dreams, your goals, your ambitions, being a happier, healthier, more fulfilled version of you and being the best version of you. As I always say, I'm not a perfect person, but I've learned some lessons along the way from working with some incredible individuals, photographing or interviewing, generally spending time around some of the most successful people in the world, being very blessed to do so. And some of these life lessons, they apply to daily life. Most of them, in fact, apply to daily life. Even though they're coming from some of the most successful people on the planet, they could help you with what you're doing every day to be a happier, healthier, more fulfilled version of you. So, without further ado, getting into it, okay, in overcoming, we become. That's going to be the subject that we'll talk about very briefly today. Thank you for taking time out of your day to listen to this. So, basically, in overcoming, you become. What does that mean? Well, it means that in life, we go through life, many of us, with perceived limits. We feel that we have certain limits, whether they be physical limits in our strength, our endurance, our fitness, our body image, whatever, financial limitations, mental limitations on what we think we can or can't learn, and what have you. But the thing about working with very, very successful people is in virtually all cases, they've smashed through those limits and then some, and they've proved that those limits don't exist at all, pretty much. The thing with these people in overcoming, we become by pushing past our limits, we grow, we stretch, we become more than. And anybody who's aiming for a big goal in life has to become more than they were before to get where they are. I learned this lesson. Well, I've learned it from quite a few people, but a recent example is a great athlete called Tony Johnson Jr., who's a professional MMA fighter, won 2 world titles in MMA, and he's also won an additional title in bare knuckle boxing as well. Given the fact that MMA is one of the toughest sports in the world, and don't worry, you don't have to be an elite athlete to apply this. But given it's one of the toughest sports in the world, multiple martial arts combined into one to compete at the highest level, a sport that requires discipline, commitment, flexibility, intelligence, self-awareness, and quite a few other attributes. I thought it'd be great to talk about Tony and highlight this lesson and how it can help you. Now, the thing about Tony Johnson, in overcoming, you become, and the thing is, he talked about stretching himself. He talked about bouncing back from failure. Times where he'd lost fights, he'd had to come back and win them. Times when he'd been sparring with incredibly tough competitors, including Deontay Wilder and Francis Ngannou, for anybody who follows boxing or UFC, sparring with those guys. Times when he questioned, do I even want to do this? And this is coming from a guy who's won, obviously, 2 world titles, well, 3 if you include the bare knuckle boxing world title as well. So, without further ado, with that, in overcoming, you become. He talked about pursuing his dream abroad. In other words, not only fighting in the USA, where he's from, currently living in Cincinnati, Ohio, but originally from Texas and Nashville, Tennessee. He was talking about going overseas to compete in Russia, to compete in all sorts of international competitions. And some of the difficulties that people have experiencing racism as a Black American in Russia, big topic for Tony, having to work twice as hard to get the win due to competing in a foreign promotion, not having as big a name in Russia as he has maybe in America, being far, far outside of his comfort zone. Now, as I mentioned at the beginning, you have to grow into what you want to be. What do I mean by that? Well, look at people who win the lottery. People who win the lottery, a very common story. People win, like here in the UK, we have like the Euro Millions, we have all these different things. Different places around the world have different ones. People win millions of pounds, dollars, whatever your currency is, and 5 years later you catch up with them, they're broke. Why are they broke? They've spent their money on silly things because they haven't grown inside to be a person who feels worthy of making that much money. So there's an aspect of self-image with this. Same type of thing with Tony Johnson. He had to grow into being the person who was ready to be a world champion. And by overcoming obstacles, he had to face aspects of himself he didn't like, including nerves, including anxiety, and even fear, which we discussed, including being far out of his comfort zone, doubting if he could even do these things, finding out aspects about his character. And the same thing applies to you and the people you deal with in your life, because these principles are universal. They apply to everybody. In overcoming, in pushing past a perceived limitation, we actually realize that it gets easier each time we do it. Winning something once is amazing. Winning the exact same thing again can be considered less amazing because you've already done it once. Look at it this way. If you can get down and you can do, say, 100 press-ups, fair play to you, very, very impressive. Somebody else gets down and can do 10 press-ups. Most people would look at it and say, okay, well, the person who can do 100 press-ups, that's much better. Well, not really, because we don't know anything about their background. We don't know where they came from. We don't know what their fitness background is. Somebody could have started doing one press up a week ago, and in a week or 10 days, they can do 10, they can do 10 consistently. That progress is huge, massive, from where that person started to, from where they've grown from. You don't know. Last year, they could have been massively overweight. They could have been massively in debt and had no time for fitness. They could have been struggling with mental health, whatever. Coming from something like that, from one press up to 10 press ups. This was an example I actually heard in a podcast episode I did with a professional MMA fighter called Byron Phillips, who was also competing in boxing, fought Roy Jones Jr. Again, great name for anyone who does follow boxing. Very, very important lesson. As we push past our limitations shrink, decrease, and eventually disappear altogether. They evaporate. Whereas every time we refuse to face our limitations, they become bigger, they become stronger, and we become less than. Every time we push through them, we find out we can go further than we thought. We find out there's more resources inside of us. There's more to our very nature, our very souls than we thought. And amazing things can happen, not just in the physical world in terms of results, fitness, finances, success, fame, whatever, but also in terms of what's inside you, the way you feel about yourself, the confidence, the contentment, the passion, the increased energy. There's so many things that do apply from this. So I hope that this is of some benefit to you and anyone who's listening to this. I hope it helps. For more information on these types of topics, including to listen to the interviews with some of these great names, please subscribe at the link below to the Simply Inspired YouTube channel, and there'll be more content coming soon. Or follow me on social media at Liam Hartree on Facebook or Instagram or LinkedIn, and I'd be happy to talk with you further. So if you do want to know any more about these topics, please DM me.